Yes.
I love when Dylan talks about taking drugs, because it's very apparently talks about it that he has never taken drugs before in his life.
I think we just need to experience the Rake firsthand, so I just say tonight we all look at the foot of our bed. I hope the Rake visits each and every one of you tonight.
It gives us
and we'll
presents.
talk about it on the next one, if any of us make it, you know.
You have to do a ritual where you put an actual rake on your head.
It's like the fucking Tooth Fairy.
Hello, and welcome to Scare Your Friends. My name is John, a.k.a. Skillfully, and I am joined by my three friends today.
Also known
tonight.
Skillfully? Wait. You said A.K. Skillfully.
Hello, and welcome to Scare Your Friends. My name is John, a.k.a. Skillfully, and I am joined by my three...
There's another A there. A.K.A. Skillfully.
That's what I
Also
said.
known as... Did anybody else hear
I
that?
heard it that time,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Alright.
I'm not even paying attention.
Also, who the fuck are you?
Whatever's the joke I was going to do. I was literally going to be like, and I'm joined by my three friends today. Tonight we have Dylan, Dan, and William. What's up, William?
Hey, how's it going?
Of course, William is not actually here. Tonight we are with a new friend, Kevin. How you doing, Kevin?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on.
I don't like changes. Dislike, unsubscribe.
Anti-Nate there.
Which, by the way, make sure you like and subscribe to this YouTube channel.
Stop.
Like and subscribe.
No, like, comment.
People,
subscribe.
no.
We're not allowed to comment.
People in the Discord are gonna get that joke, but nobody else will, and that's okay.
I hope I make my Discord public by the time this episode comes out.
Well, I mean, whatever. We're all in the Discord now, which is cool. So thank you everyone for welcoming us. By the way, I want to put that on record.
I got a very warm welcome from Discord.
That's
I feel
good.
very accepted already.
I only posted 2 things. I'm not,
That's probably for the best.
I don't even go on the app.
Good.
Dylan posted one thing and it was overwhelmed, and it's like, okay, I don't know what's going on.
I was
So,
honestly
yeah.
surprised. I was like, holy shit, he knows how to use it.
It was about that, about
There
something. I
was-
was just like, I'm not. I don't want to know.
Anyway, how are you, John?
I am doing very
Been a
well,
while.
honestly. I was
Been a
sick
while.
all of January for the most part, and February's been a massive bitch.
Nice.
She
But
could do that
tonight we
sometimes.
have Scare Your Friends back up. It's been a while since we recorded, since the episode... what the hell did we record last time? Fuck. Well, bedtime.
I know
Right, bedtime.
this is your podcast.
Long
That's
silence, so they can insert the name.
But yeah, today we are reading a pretty well-known entity story called The Rake. I call it an entity story because it's very Lovecraftian. It's about a monster, and there's even a little monster you get when you open the wiki page.
It's because there's a monster and it doesn't make it Lovecraftian, John. I will decide if it's Lovecraftian.
No, I think the wiki has like...
I'm real saucy today.
No, I mean like literally the if you go to the wiki, they have
like
tabs.
a synopsis.
No, they have tabs.
Oh, it's
so it's like
Lovecraftian.
so like sometimes they'll say mental health or something or mental illness. This one says Lovecraftian.
That's pretty
That's
cool.
like a tab.
I'm in. I'm all in. Love me some Lovecraft, racism and all. Let's do it.
So before we move on, before we move forward with the story, obviously this is Kevin's first time on the podcast. So, Kevin, I want to ask you, what is your experience with horror fiction? Maybe tell the people a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Okay, I mean, in college I had a friend who actually did some readings of creepypastas on YouTube. That was my introduction to it. Hardly remember any of it. And then my reintroduction was finding Scare Your Friends, through talking with you guys.
Okay.
So I've listened to every episode so far.
So fans, this is, if you ever want to be on Scare Your Friends, this is a dream come true. We have somebody who listened to the show, who likes the show,
Who commented on the videos.
who just so
We
happens.
don't know how to do that anymore.
Now it's not just that. You can't just be a super fan. You have to live potentially close to us. Also, know us and be kind of sort of almost related to one of us. So if you meet all of those criteria, you can be on the show. Hooray!
You basically have to marry one of our cousins. You have to marry one of our cousins.
Or us. Either way, whatever.
Yeah,
take whoever.
I
I'm
missed that.
single, ready to mingle. Let's do this.
Yep.
I proposed to Dan like 4 times. He said no.
Yeah, I'm not...
The last one was a maybe, so fingers crossed, everyone.
I told you to wait until he was in his 30s before asking him out.
Well,
That's the only time when he
getting
might
there.
do it.
That's why him and my cousin are engaged.
Okay.
Dan said no. Now there we go.
Yeah, she was my second choice.
Wow. That's on record now. Great. It's good. Good.
I hope she doesn't listen to this.
Okay, so the Rake, John, let's fucking, before this goes way off the rails.
Like, one of the other ones we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well.
That one.
The Rake, John, sounds like fun, Lovecraftian. Let's do it.
All right. You know what, Kevin? Your first time here. Why don't you start off reading?
Really?
Let's do it. Why not?
It's usually you start off.
I'll start off then. Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Yeah,
I'll go?
put me on the spot. Just go ahead.
All right, I'll start then. Okay, this is The Rake. And by the way, we're only 5 minutes in. We're starting the story.
Oh, that's actually good. That's because I got a spec course corrected us real early.
And now we're detracting.
I'm getting really good at it.
All right. This isn't a very long story, so I'll read a couple of paragraphs and then we'll just keep going on a couple of paragraphs. Okay, so during the summer of 2003, events in the northeastern United States involving a strange human-like creature sparked brief local media interest before an apparent blackout was enacted. Little to no information was left intact, as most online and written accounts of the creature were mysteriously destroyed. Primarily focused in rural New York State, and once found in Idaho, self-proclaimed witnesses told stories of their encounters with a creature of unknown origin. Emotions range from extremely traumatic levels of fright and discomfort to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity. While their published versions are no longer on record, the memories remained powerful. Several of the involved parties began to look for answers that year.
In early 2006, the collaboration had accumulated nearly 24 documents dating between the 12th century and present day, spanning 4 continents. In almost all cases, the stories were identical. I've been in contact with a member of this group and was able to get more expert excerpts from their upcoming book. A Suicide Note, 1964. As I prepare to take my life, I feel it necessary to assuage any guilt or pain I have introduced through this act.
We'll edit that.
If I can, he said it like 5 fucking times. I don't think I can use one.
Hold on, long period of silence.
I don't know if the word's even right.
It is not the fault of anyone other than him, for once I awoke and felt his presence, and once I awoke and saw his form, once again I awoke and heard his voice, and looked into his eyes. I cannot sleep without fear of what I might next awake to experience. I cannot ever awake. Goodbye. Found in the same wooden box were 2 empty envelopes addressed to William and Rose, and 1 loose personal letter with no envelope. Dearest Linny, I have prayed for you. He spoke your name.
A journal entry, translated from Spanish.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, thank you. I knew that's what
God damn it, they're not going to understand it.
Have me read the last excerpt.
Kevin is Hispanic.
Thank you. Thank you.
We expect a lot of those now.
Now everyone's in on the joke. Okay. A journal entry, translated from Spanish, 1880. I've experienced the greatest terror. I've experienced the greatest terror. I've experienced the greatest terror. I thought I was having a stroke, sorry. I see his eyes when I close mine. They are hollow, but black. They saw me and pierced me. His wet hand, I will not sleep. His voice, unintelligible text.
So, what are we thinking about this so far?
This is very fucking Lovecraftian.
I would say the same.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I'm not very familiar with Lovecraft's work.
So I have read through pretty much everything. I'm not like an expert, obviously. I didn't look at any really critical theory afterwards. But there's a lot. You can tell there's a lot. First of all, it's like it's kind of set up a little bit. It reminds me of Call of Cthulhu, only because it's like a guy is compiling other people's experiences with some kind of worldwide phenomena. But yeah, Lovecraft, all sorts of like people seeing something they can't explain or can't comprehend, kind of going crazy. He does a lot of like weird dream shit too. So a lot of the time their minds are more open when they're sleeping, so they experience whatever the phenomenon is. So yeah, very much so. There's a touch of it.
It does go into like, the sleep dreams, like you said.
Right. But no, this is very much so.
So what do you think about the choices of the author so far to not make a personal account of this monster, but to have previous experiences from other people from different eras. Like the first one we've read was from 64. The next one was 1880.
Right.
And they've all mysteriously vanished.
Right. I know we've talked about this before, where the horror doesn't necessarily happen exactly to the protagonist. So that what was it? The hell was the one we read that William had an issue with?
All of them?
No. The TV.
I know which one you're talking about.
The TV show, Pirate
Candle Cove.
Candle Cove.
Jeez,
where the horror
2 years ago, a year ago.
Okay, where the horror doesn't the horror doesn't happen directly to anybody, so it's just a memory. Similar thing, but again, Call of Cthulhu is set up like that. It's a gentleman who his uncle, I think, dies and finds a whole bunch of weird shit that his uncle was researching because he worked at a university and compiling information about.
This isn't Candle Cove.
It's Call of Cthulhu.
Oh, okay.
The actual Lovecraft story.
All right.
And his uncle gets involved, and there's a mysterious cult that's worshiping Cthulhu. Then in Louisiana, then across in the South Pacific, they discover an island where so there's a whole bunch of shit going on at different points in time. So it's the same kind of concept as this.
All right. So the next thing we have is I'll just let you read it. This is a log from 1691.
A mariner's log, to be more precise. He came to me in my sleep. From the foot of the bed I felt a sensation. He took everything. We must return to England. We shall not return here again at the request of the Rake. From a witness, 2006. 3 years ago, I had just returned from a trip from Niagara Falls with my family for the 4th of July. We were all very exhausted after a long day of driving, so my husband and I put the kids right to bed and called it a night. At about 4 a.m., I woke up thinking my husband had gotten up to use the restroom. I used the moment to steal back the sheets, only to wake him in the process. I apologized and told him I thought he got out of bed. When he turned to face me, he gasped and pulled his feet up from the end of the bed so quickly his knee almost knocked me out of the bed. He then grabbed me and said nothing. After adjusting to the dark for half a second, I was able to see what caused the strange reaction. At the foot of the bed, sitting and facing away from us, there was what appeared to be a naked man, or a large hairless dog of some sort. Its body position was disturbing and unnatural, as if it had been hit by a car or something. For some reason, I was not instantly frightened by it, but more concerned at its condition. At this point, I was somewhat under the assumption that we were supposed to help him. My husband was peering over his arm and knee, tucked in the fetal position, occasionally glancing at me before returning to the creature.
In a flurry of motion, the creature scrambled around the side of the bed, and then crawled quickly in a frailing sort of motion right along the bed, until it was less than a foot away from my husband's face. The creature was completely silent for about 30 seconds, or probably closer to 5, it just seemed like a while. Just looking at my husband, the creature then placed its hand on his knee and ran into the hallway, leading to the kids' room. I screamed and ran for the light switch, planning to stop him before he hurt my children. When I got to the hallway, the light from the bedroom was enough to see it crouching and hunched over about 20 feet away. He turned around and looked directly at me, covered in blood. I flipped a switch on the wall and saw my daughter, Clara. The creature ran down the stairs while my husband and I rushed to help our daughter. She was badly injured and only spoke once more in her short life. She said, "He is the Rake." My husband drove his car into a lake that night. While rushing our daughter to the hospital, they did not survive. Being in a small town, news gets around pretty quickly. The police were helpful at least, and the local newspaper took a lot of interest in it as well. However, the story was never published, and the local television news never followed up either.
For several months, my son Justin and I stayed in the hotel near my parents' house. After we decided to return home, I began looking for answers myself. I eventually located a man in the next town over who had a similar story. We got in contact and began talking about our experiences. He knew of 2 other people in New York who had seen the creature we now refer to as the Rake. It took the 4 of us about 2 solid years of hunting on the internet and writing letters to come up with a small collection of what we believed to be accounts of the Rake. None of them gave any details, history, or follow-up. One journal had an entry involving the creature in its first 3 pages, and never mentioned it again. A ship's log explained nothing of the encounter, saying only that they were told to leave by the Rake. That was the last entry in the log. There were, however, many instances where the creature's visit was one of a series of visits with the same person. Multiple people who also mentioned being spoken to, my daughter included. This led us to wonder if the Rake had visited any of us before our last encounter. I set up a digital recorder near my bed and left it running all night, every night for 2 weeks. I would tediously scan through the sounds of me rolling around in my bed each day when I woke up. By the end of the second week, I was quite used to the occasional sound of sleep while blurring through the recordings at 8 times the normal speed. This still took almost an hour every day.
On the first day of the third week, I thought I heard something different. What I found was a shrill voice. It was the Rake. I can't listen to it long enough to even begin to transcribe it. I haven't let anyone listen to it yet. All I know is that I've heard it before, and I now believe that it spoke when it was sitting in front of my husband. I don't remember hearing anything at the time, but for some reason the voice on the record immediately brings me back to that moment. The thoughts that must have gone through my daughter's head make me very upset. I've not seen the Rake since he ruined my life, but I know that he has been in my room while I slept. I know and fear that one night I'll wake up to see him staring at me.
And that was The Rake. A very short creepypasta story, but one that has gained a lot of traction. If you look below, there are some videos that can be watched, an apparent interview from a YouTuber to this older lady about the Rake, and then some other lore stuff. There is a lot of lore about the Rake, a lot of fan art about the Rake. It's a fairly known creature, to my knowledge, I believe this is the original story of the Rake. So overall, what did you guys think?
I liked it. I did. It in terms of like ambiguity, what this creature's motivation is, and what exactly it is, and how it's doing the things it's doing, reminds me a lot of the thing that stalks the fields. There's a description. It's not crazy detailed. This thing just shows up in people's dreams, or it speaks to them in their dreams and then kills them for some reason. We don't know why. But I think the simplicity, again, is the best part of the story. That some kind of just dog-like creature just fucking kills people. It just shows up randomly, and it's been potentially in our world for hundreds of years, which is another very Lovecraftian thing. If not 8 millennia. Ancient fucking... The word is eldritch.
At least since the 1600s.
Right. The word is eldritch. Uses that word a lot. It's ancient, unknown evil. Yeah, it's cool. It is very Lovecraftian. I like it because of that.
What'd you think, Kevin?
I liked it. I actually think I've heard of it before, which reminds me now that when I did hear of it, it definitely left me a little, spooked, because I would be the one turning off all the lights at night. And because of, the picture, that it's, this white creature thing, there'd always be, that one white thing that stands out in the middle of a dark room. And my mind went immediately to, oh, shoot, it's a Rake. And, it's all right, back into my room. But I think what adds to, the terror, the little fear of it, is that it's existed forever, and it's been all over the world.
Right.
And personally, what scared me more is that he goes after Spanish-speaking people. So I knew he was coming for me and my family.
But I just like the idea that we don't know what this thing's motivation is. It's random. From what we can see, it's completely random. So, that is the scariest part. When you have some kind of monster or creature or whatever, where it just fucking it's an enigma. It just kills without prejudice. That's fucking creepy. You just wake up and it's sitting. And that's another thing too. That image, it's kind of like, I don't want to say tropey, but the image of waking up and there's something standing over your bed or in front of your bed is fucking
There's a really good
terrifying.
Image of the things sitting at the edge of someone's bed looking at you.
Oh, boy.
I'll try to find it.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
While I look for it, Dylan, I want to ask you, as someone who is studying journalism, how realistic do you think it is for something like this to not be reported? And they say in the first paragraph they talk about how any entries or any written passages are wiped off, just mysteriously wiped and destroyed. How realistic is that to you?
Well, it could be multiple things, being wiped off, someone, coming into a house, It does sound realistic to the sense of, someone breaking in, but there's been crazy people who have done that.
But this is not a person, this is a
thing. It's a thing. But if you told me it was a thing, I'd be very hesitant to believe you that you tell me this. If it was someone, I could be like, okay, this makes more sense if someone's,
I'm gonna post I'm gonna quickly put the picture that I found. I think this is fan art of the Rake, but this is sort of the image
Oh, it looks like
of it sitting at the edge of the bed.
I think it's because I've been playing Doom recently, but it looks like the imp from
And the Rake is a really great name. It's really simple, and it's like, what the fuck does that even mean? But like, you hear the Rake, and you see this creature. Like it works because, again, that like the simplicity of it.
I think it's like the phonetics of it. It creates that feeling of it. That's like just a weird word.
Yep. So it's like there's that, like at the beginning where it's like people have reported it, but it's been erased. Somebody's gotten rid of it. So it's like, is there? It feels like there's more to it. Like this is some kind of phenomenon that people are aware of.
Are you saying it's like a cover-up, or is it just a mysterious occurrence?
See, that's what I wanted to
kind
go
of,
into.
sort of. Like it feels like that some kind of power that be knows that this thing actually exists. You know, like the real like Men in Black type shit. And they're trying to cover it up. And I mean, how do you stop an entity that just appears wherever, you know, throughout time? With something like this story works best as an internet story, I feel like. Because they compile, now you can reach out to people and compile information to get a better idea of what this thing is. And then they're pulling stuff from like library or whatever, documents from wherever, from older stuff. But there's a lot you can do with this story too, or continue doing with this creature.
You can, yeah, that's absolutely the case.
So, especially with like, again, because I think what I find most interesting is that the records are being, you know, suppressed.
Somebody's right.
I mean, it can go so many ways. Like, I'm thinking, you know, what do I personally want to believe? Is it like mystical? Like the Rake has the power to delete these records? Is it like an organization which sounds more Lovecraftian, like the cult of the Rake trying to suppress us? Yeah. Is it, you know, it's a lot of different things, you know, that it can go into, which leaves it very open, which leads the mind to go into different things.
All right. That's very interesting. So I guess the general consensus of the room is that you guys like the story.
Yeah, it was cool. Absolutely. And there is enough inspiration from Lovecraft without feeling like it's ripping it off, or even like necessarily paying homage to it. Like there's tinges of it, but it really is its own thing, and it really is like a modern version of that. And I feel like that's very difficult to do. So yeah, I enjoyed the story for what it is. I don't read a lot of, like, I've read most of his stuff. I haven't really read any other authors, that have done Cthulhu Mythos things. If anybody out there listening to this podcast has any recommendations, please just leave it in the comment, because I'll look into it. Because I'm always curious.
So I've been trying to get my thoughts together, and the reason why is because this is not my favorite story.
Really?
It's okay. I'm fine with it. It's simple, and it works the way it's written. I just have some issues with it. The first being that I think it's almost a cop-out in the first sentence to say that all the online and written accounts of the creature are mysteriously destroyed.
Give that to you. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Also, they say in this part that in 2006 the collaboration there's like 24 accounts from the 12th century to the present, spanning 4 continents, and in almost all cases the stories appear to be identical. Yet, when it comes to these stories, I don't feel like they are stories. I feel like we get 4 or 5 excerpts from those other stories.
Right, and they're not identical
they're not very identical at all. And then, to make matters worse, the meat of the story is only the one account at the very end.
Right.
The other accounts are just sort of this mysterious, the past, I guess. And I get it. It's not the present day. And that's the other problem I have with it. I understand the idea of a possible government cover-up if this didn't take place in the 1600s. Okay, I think that kind of blows that out of the water. I think the reason why this author said that a lot of the online accounts were deleted and destroyed is because if people actually tried to research the Rake and see if it's true at the time he wrote it or she wrote it, they probably would find nothing. Well, so now you find plenty of stuff because the story got popular. But the thing with these authors, and to my knowledge, this author is unknown, so we don't know who the original author is. None of these stories that we read on the show were ever made to be popular.
Right.
You never expect it to rise to fame, unless you're like the latter stories of Pen Pal, where you already have traction, or you're the latter stories of the Abandoned by Disney series. where you're writing based on a pre-existing thing that you know people are going to read.
Right, you're not
even
something new
even the
expecting.
showers to some extent, same thing. even that one to some extent. But the thing with this one is we get basically a paragraph and a quarter for the 1964 suicide note. We get this tiny little 6-line thing for the journal entry in 1880, a 4-line thing for the log in 1691. And then we get 2, and then it's 2006, and that's the rest of the story.
Well, I like the little tie-in they do at the end. These 4 people actually.
I would
all look on the internet.
If I was writing the story, I would have just written it about my personal experiences with the Rake. You don't have to do this intro where it's like, we've accumulated some. Despite the fact that this information has been destroyed, we have accumulated some documents, and we are going to present them to you. And you present these half-baked logs and entries from people who are long since dead or gone. And at the end, in 2006, it feels like, instead of a log from someone else, it feels like someone's personal experience. So I say, get rid of the log, get rid of the documents, and focus more on the entry from 2006. I want to know more about that.
So, now that you're saying that, and I think there, like I mentioned before, there's more that you can do with it. Yes, I agree with you to an extent. That there could be more in the logs. There could be more, like, you can do, and I hate that I'm going to say this, but you could do a dream sequence with one of the logs because it's a very fucking Lovecraftian thing to do.
Right.
And like I said before, this is structured very much like the Call of Cthulhu, where the horror does not happen to the protagonist at all. It is him chasing leads across the world, starting with an anchor point of his uncle, I think it was his uncle, mysteriously dies after compiling all this information that he finds. So, at least in this story, they do a bit of both. Because it's like the Call of Cthulhu is the guy recalling the events. It feels very much like a creepypasta. Like he posted it online, but 100 years ago. And then there are a lot of the other Lovecraftian stories, despite the Call of Cthulhu being his most famous. The horror happens directly to the person, and it's usually them recalling the events. So you have a bit of both, but at the central point of it, you have this mysterious, unexplainable creature that seems like it not omnipotent, but it's able to appear at will anywhere and targets whoever and causes people to kind of go crazy, but we're not really sure if they're going crazy. They're definitely having some kind of dreams or nightmares, and the thing's speaking to them in some language or something that they can't understand. It's also very Lovecraftian. So yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I agree with a lot of it. But I think if you knew more about where the inspiration for this was coming from, you might not be as dissatisfied with it.
That's fine. I'm just saying I think the story would work better without it.
I agree.
You have to
to
expand upon, because if I feel like you can't have it both ways, and this story is much better than Jeff the Killer, but
no,
I feel like
no.
It is. It's so much
no.
better. It is so much better.
No.
Objectively speaking.
No, I can't believe that.
Will's out there somewhere.
He's crying in his room somewhere.
Crying.
No.
I want to kill you now.
But in Jeff the Killer, if you recall, the way it starts off,
I remember everything about that story.
It starts off as a news article,
yes, yeah.
And then switches to first person.
Ominous Anonymous,
right? And I feel like this almost as and also
it kind of does.
The timing. Read the timing of it carefully. Before the first log, the first sentence of the first paragraph, it says in early 2006.
Right.
That's when the documents were collected.
Right.
I think this heavily implies that the person who experienced the events, the wife,
right,
who experienced the events in 2006, is supposed to be the person who's collecting the documents after the death of her husband.
She says that.
Is that what she says?
She says she compiled the logs and all that. It's a nice little. As I say before,
it is her.
It's a nice little tie-in, which then you kind of go, okay, where are these logs? And you read the log, you read the beginning of the story, and then you go back to doing the same thing over.
So this woman's kind of trying to make sense of what happened, but I feel like we don't have. We experience the horror from her point of view,
right.
I feel like it's not enough as a motivator for the character. We don't really know. I don't know. It has this very distant third person, despite it being by the end it's the woman.
This is how it's written.
So it's weird.
It reads like a newspaper. For
Right.
The first 3
There's
paragraphs.
no personal.
Once
right.
it reads like a newspaper, it's 3 parts.
Right.
Newspaper for the first 3 paragraphs, log entries,
Right.
and then woman
Horror,
and her personal experience.
Right.
I feel like you can't. The story's not long enough for you to have
It's
3
too
different
much.
points of perspective.
No, I think it's not enough. I think Sean's right. Well, there's a reason why.
I think I would feel better
it's
if
like 30 some odd pages.
I think if it was like, there's what's the story I'm thinking about? I can't think of the story name.
Would you prefer this to be written something like the oh my god, the Abandoned by Disney sequel? What's the first one?
A few suggestions?
No. The first
Room
Zero. Where would you prefer it like that, where it is definitely from the woman's perspective? She explains her experience, then she goes into significant details about these other documented cases, not like 3 or 4 sentences,
I think
but
it'd
like
be better.
And right, that's right.
Because you need to, if you're gonna end with feeling some sort of personal attachment to this woman who's lost her child
and
husband,
knows that this thing is still
is still there.
Right.
I think they want you to have a personal connection with this character,
and there's not enough.
and you need to start off your story with this character.
Right.
I feel like it has to start with her personal experiences, then the event happens, and then she finds the log
Trying
afterwards.
to explain, right?
It has to go chronologically,
Right.
But instead, it reads like 3 different authors wrote this. The newspaper portion, the log portion, and then a personal story. Want this.
It seems like a fourth
you're
party
gonna
is
go the log
compiling
route-
everything and putting it.
It's
you
not
wanna write it-
transitioning well.
If you want to do the log thing, I would rather you write this like normal porn for normal people,
Okay.
where obviously you're not finding a website like you did. It's not the same context, but the structure.
You're going
Where
down the rabbit hole.
You're going down a rabbit hole of logs.
Right.
You can write a story where it's like, I discovered this creature that no one really wants to talk about. I'm trying to whistle blow it or something.
Right. And that's what it feels like they're trying to do, but there's not enough.
Right.
There's not enough. So I don't know. I still like this story. Like, thematically, I like this.
I like the idea.
But the more we talk about the mechanics of the story, the more I'm like, all right.
As we're taking it apart.
Right.
Yeah.
The more we're deconstructing it.
But
I'm
I
like,
see
yeah,
what
okay.
you mean.
It's a short story, and there's a lot to deconstruct in it.
Right.
I just think it's, I think you gotta stay somewhat consistent.
Right.
Room Zero never pretends, like the way Room Zero is written, it's written as I have to expose.
But that's what I'm saying. It's
either
structured properly.
It's structured properly so that it's either an exposed Disney story or it's the ramblings of a crazy
It's
man.
trying to do what this story's doing, but it does it successfully.
Right.
Because it's a similar type of, this is what I experienced, let me investigate some other weird shit.
And
It's
also
the same
when-
kind of thing. The protagonist from Room Zero is shit's being sent to him, and he's researching shit, and he's finding shit from the past and online and everything else. So it's the same kind of thing, but the setup and the way it's written is significantly better and just structured properly, rather than this, which goes in the opposite way.
Right, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was written in 2006. The wiki has only existed since 2008,
right.
So someone obviously reposted this.
Right.
But this could have been written on one of the older 4chan creepypasta sites, and just was left uncredited. And that person is kicking themselves to this day that they left it uncredited. I always figure that that's gotta suck.
Well, some people just have an idea. They post it on and they go, and
and then it gets big.
They just fuck off. And,
I mean, some people also have the pleasure of knowing, that's out there, that's mine,
right.
and no one knows who it is,
Or the guy wrote it and the Rake killed him, and we'll never know.
I mean, it was like what's that guy who hijacked that plane and got millions of dollars. D.B. Cooper. No one knew who he was. I think it was a few people on their deathbed saying yeah, that was me. But it's that thrill of knowing that was me,
right?
and no one knows. It's the almost I got away with it. Also, I guess since we're deconstructing it, he's also avoiding a lot of criticism.
Who?
Whoever the original author, you know?
No, because like dicks like us fucking sit down and record how much we hated the story.
No, I think the story works somewhat okay.
Yeah.
I think it could use a rewrite. I think this was like a first draft that someone just blotted down.
A lot of them we read are.
Yeah,
but I do think you're right in like setting it up that way, where if it started with the last entry being like the story told that way, and all these documents keep coming up in like her own discovery. Sort of like if you're playing Resident Evil, you're just going through the story, an event happens, and you're finding journal entries and documents supporting it.
The only problem with that is it's difficult to do because, like you mentioned before, we don't. The author's writing this doesn't know it's going to get big. Room Zero is the sequel to Abandoned by Disney, so you have a whole it would be better structured like that, but you have a whole nother story.
Oh, I get
where the horror happens. And that story structured where the horror happens at the end, like most horror stories. So I feel like this was written properly in the most generic terms of horror stories.
This is an old-fashioned creepypasta.
But it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work because of the way that the information is conveyed.
Right. Dawn?
A
lot of syntax, a lot
more. I'm just listening
Dylan's
to you guys.
Brain's melting.
Well, you've heard a lot. What do you think?
The problem I have with it was it was out of order. I agree it was out of order, but it's very short. It was too short for my liking. And you guys, I know Dan, you are big, Cthulhu fan.
I just like to read, man. I just read.
Yeah,
things.
And it did. Honestly, I felt more of a disconnect because as soon as I heard the name Rake, I automatically thought of the gardening tool. And that's just me. That's just me.
Come on, man.
I'm trying to explain myself.
Okay, sure.
So, I automatically thought of that. So I'm like, when someone tells me the Rake, I'm like, and it really doesn't get me with this.
I think the name's good, honestly.
It's a simple name, yes, but I think of that, I'm like, okay, I'm expecting something, and they really didn't. When it came to the actual creature, didn't really, leave a impression.
I don't know, Dylan. If you woke up tonight and there was a goddamn and that thing was at the foot of your bed, you'd probably shit your pants.
It was at the foot of my bed, yeah, but I'm not calling it the Rake.
If it told you that its name was the Rake, like it does in the fucking story, you would scream its name while you were shitting your pants.
But
it calls it. That's the other thing too. It calls itself the Rake. It calls itself that, or at least that's what it's telling the people that it's fucking harassing. That's what they should call it. That's fucked up too.
Does it say it when it's in the room, or does it say it when it's
not?
We
don't know. People wake up and they say
when the Rake attacks the mother's daughter, or the author's daughter.
Right.
She says its name is the Rake.
Right.
Okay.
So, and then she talks about how she hears the scream at the end, and then for whatever reason she remembers it screaming at her husband. So it has this weird mental, effect. Because it also talks about in the story how the husband is scared shitless.
Oh, yeah.
But she is almost, compassionate. Like, she thinks it's injured. So is this thing, does this thing have some kind of fucked up mental ability like that? This is really out there. It's able to project itself in different ways and elicit different emotions. Because doesn't the Mothman, I feel like the Mothman story does that, or people look at it and they get all fucked up. But yeah, so it's to one person it's the Rake and it's this monster, and to other people, and that's how it's able to survive for so long.
I mean, if you want to go
some people are compassionate towards it, while others
because
people,
it looks
somehow
it's
or
able to
deformed and mangled.
But that's a very not necessarily a very Lovecraftian thing, but the idea of people getting fucked, mind fucked by what they're experiencing or seeing.
Speaking of that, when she mentions her husband drove into a lake, I felt that was lackluster. It was okay, he found that's it. It was okay,
it kind of just happens.
Did the thing pop up in the car, and all of a sudden he freaked out and drove himself in the car? Did it project itself in his mind? Did he start hearing the Rake? And
was it in the back seat?
No, I think it's what you're saying. Maybe it's just some sort of psychological thing because he was left traumatized. Right. The woman didn't, And, like, I mean, you don't really know what's going on with the daughter, but the daughter was physically attacked. So not only is he being, like, seeing this creature and maybe some sort of psychological trauma or doing whatever it's doing, it's now my daughter is probably going to die. So I would see him definitely killing himself.
But I think it was.
Well, he didn't kill himself. He was trying to drive his daughter to the hospital.
It didn't. I took it as that. He's like, you know what, screw this, and just drove
That's
it.
what I took it as.
No, my husband drove his car into a lake that night while rushing our daughter to the hospital. They did not survive.
Okay,
so he legitimately was just like, nope, and just fucking while he was driving her there.
That's where she didn't go with him.
So you can, no,
I guess there was a son.
They had another kid, right?
That's true.
So there's an implication there that, maybe, but there's not enough. Again,
I honestly just took it as he was crazed out of his mind, and as he's trying to drive, he makes a mistake at the wheel and falls.
It could be that too.
I didn't think the Rake did it. Well, he did do it.
Rake did it.
Well, the Rake did it, like, passively.
Indirectly, yeah.
Indirectly did it.
What were you saying?
Oh, but like when you said that, like the wife totally saw it differently. It does say in like the second paragraph that the emotions range from extremely traumatic levels of fright to an almost childlike sense of playfulness and curiosity.
Right, which is weird.
Exactly. I mean,
very bizarre.
Right, but I think it would be better if we could come up with those conclusions ourselves without the story having to tell us that.
Or have it in the logs, because every log that we experience,
or she discovers terrified. Or she goes through the experience, and it happens the exact way it happens at the end of the story, and she starts researching, and then discovers that based on her research, that people's reactions to this creature go from fright to childlike wonder.
Right, because every encounter we have is all terrifying. Everybody's freaked out. And they're scared. We don't get that other reaction until we get to her, and in that sense, you could do a lot more. You could explain a lot more without giving too much away too, which is a problem that we have a lot of time when we read stuff like this, where there's too much, where this doesn't have enough. But I feel like we could figure out how to strike the balance. If it's restructured and we get a little bit more about how other people perceive it, other than being fucking terrified in the logs. And we get the wife's experience, but again, it's very brief. This could do with a little bit of adjustments. Yeah.
No, it's a good first draft.
Right.
And that's why I will have to
And it's still scary. It's still this creature, and the concept is fucking freaky as hell.
And I give the story credit. I give the story a lot of credit. We finished that thing at the 15-minute mark in our raw recording, and we're way past the 40s now.
Well, the most ambiguous stories, the best ones to talk about, John. We know this.
Yeah.
I want to put a potato theory out there, but I'm like,
go ahead. No, fucking do it.
It's called a potato theory.
Do
it's
it.
A wild accusation.
Do it. You are the fucking king of those. Do it.
Well, Will
it was a dream.
No, you are.
No.
Do it.
No.
It was a metaphor for suicide.
There we go.
I'm gonna put in some Ace Attorney music in the background. I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that.
My potato theory is, the father, like most of these people, were this is going to sound crazy. We're doing heroin.
Why heroin?
Chasing the dragon instead of chasing the dragon, chasing the rake.
They're not chasing the rake, though. The rake comes to them.
I know the rake comes to them, but when you take it, you start seeing shit.
How much heroin have you done, Dylan?
I'm just from what I've read. People who've done it have see things. Okay, this is why it's called a potato theory. It doesn't mean it's a really good theory. It's a crap theory, but that's why it's a theory. Okay. Because I know how dumb it sounds.
No,
and I'm legitimately telling you why this is dumb.
You're throwing it out there, and I want you to just try to back it up as much as you can.
But they're saying because they call it chasing the dragon when you take heroin. People they call it chasing dragons. You're like, there's something there.
I don't think anybody's used that terminology in about 40 years, but sure.
I'm pretty sure that's with opium.
Opium and heroin.
Is it heroin?
Yes.
I love when Dylan talks about taking drugs, because it's very apparent when he talks about it that he has never taken drugs before in his life.
I think we just need to experience the rake firsthand, so I just say tonight we all look at the foot of our bed. I hope the rake visits each and every one of you tonight.
It gives us
and we'll talk about it on the next one, if any of us make it,
You have to do a ritual where you put an actual rake on your bed.
It's like the fucking tooth fairy.
You put it under your
Rake under your pillow.
You put the chasing the dragon is a slang phrase for candy's origin from Hong Kong, referring to inhaling the vapor from a heated solution of morphine, heroin, oxycodone, opium, or yaba.
What's the picture?
I don't know what yaba is, but I want to.
I want to party.
Okay, yeah. Dylan just looked up what chasing the dragon means.
I looked up before I went out with my theory. That's why I wanted, before I even said it, I wanted to make sure I was not losing it.
So you have to put a rake on the bed, or you could put a big old bag of heroin under your bed, and he'll come.
So
I'm chasing the dragon.
No. Chasing the dragon.
No. Rake coated with heroin.
Oh, yeah.
You can't just put a bag of
Didn't
heroin.
think I would say the word heroin during the reading of the Rake. Could be perfect.
Once again, potato theory.
So it's
a potato theory.
I think you're fucking on heroin.
So
usually it's Quaaludes.
Yeah, it's Quaaludes.
So we put a rake at the foot of our bed. Do something to rake. Oh man, I'm putting a hoe at the end of my bed.
Oh, woo! That's a good way. That's a good place to end it.
All right.
Please let us know if you enjoyed Kevin being on the podcast.
I might not be here next time.
So, final thoughts. This is the part of the... I mean, you've heard the podcast before. This is where we just talk about our final thoughts about the story. Final thoughts about the story.
A.K.A. Skillfully.
Also known as A.K.A. Skillfully. John, A.K.A. Skillfully.
Your name is John, a.k.a. Skillfully.
Yes.
Your name's John Aka Skillfully.
John, also known as
John Aka Skillfully.
Right,
so
John
final
A.K.
thoughts.
Final thoughts.
That's an Aka disappointment.
I definitely did like it in the beginning until we definitely started to deconstruct it. I'm really trying to...
Dealing with the fucking Pitch Perfect references. Woo!
I really want to come back next time. I'm trying to keep this on track.
Because I like that movie.
I guess I'll go.
Go.
You started.
I did like it in the beginning. I definitely did. I even mentioned in the beginning, too, that I have read this one or heard about it, and it did spook me in the beginning. I mean, now that we deconstructed it, it's a little bit like, yeah, it could have used some improvement. But overall, I still think it left me with that feeling of, it did its job of making me think that there could be something. Unease, thank you.
Dylan?
I was indifferent to it. At first, I was like, okay, this is good, but then as it went on, I didn't really enjoy it as much.
Okay.
Lovecraftian stuff, great. I think thematically it was fine, but I think structurally it's not great. It's not great.
Right, and it's a solid idea. It's definitely a story of its time, probably in 2000s. It probably literally was written in 2006, as the story says, maybe something around there. I don't think it's that special, honestly. I think the image, it's one of those stories where the image of the Rake has sort of outlasted the story of the Rake. I think more people are familiar with the imagery of it, much similar to Jeff the Killer, where people don't know the story, they know the
or
face.
Even like Smile Dog to an extent.
Same with Smile Dog, same with Slender Man to some extent. I don't know, it's alright. I wouldn't write a story like this. If I was recommending how to write a story with my
infinite wisdom.
Yeah, exactly.
Your infinite insight and wisdom.
Right.
Stephen King levels of experience, some would say.
Not, of course, at all. But if I was recommending how to write a story, this wouldn't be the way to do it.
Like Dean Koontz experience, maybe? A little less, but still.
I have so little experience, I have no idea who that is.
Oh, wow.
Well, if it was a Stephen King story and it was called The Rake, it'd be about an actual haunted rake.
An actual haunted rake. And the children would have an orgy to defeat it.
Alrighty. Thanks, you two.
There goes our comment section.
I hope this ages well. So join us for the next episode of Scare Your Friends. Kevin, it was great to have you on.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
In the description, I will link his. What's your art stuff? It's Mr.
Mr. Squeezy prints on Etsy.
Okay, so
Guy's got some good shit.
He's got good stuff.
Mr. Squeezy.
Definitely the most talented person here. More talented than we've never
here, not in the world. Beth.
Here.
Oh, wow. You want to fucking stick your head further up her butt?
No. I don't want anyone to take offense.
Listen. No one's taking offense. No,
I mean full offense on everything I say, ever.
She drew a nice photo of me on a Bronco.
That's true. Pony. You should link that as well. That was fucking
beautiful.
I will
masterful.
put that in the show notes.
Yes.
Okay.
I want her to know Thank you.
There you
it's
go.
Beautiful.
Well, you can tell yourself the description. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I want her to hear my voice say it.
Okay, well, you can also do that on Discord.
You could do a video chat.
You know what?
With a voice chat.
Well, the last time I did that, I got ripped apart.
I mean,
By
don't
who?
you always?
The whole creepypasta.
All right, fair enough. Nobody wants to hear you. Dylan, they hear you enough on this fucking thing. The last thing they want to hear is you
You've been
live.
talking the entire time. What are you talking about?
People love me, Dylan.
You love you.
Yeah, I do. Several times a day.
So
Shooting for the stars.
All right, so join us for the next one. This has been John, a.k.a. Skillfully, and I will see you on the next one. Peace, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other.